Welcome to We Don't Have Cookies with your host, Jason Marshall.
Hey everybody, thanks for downloading the show and welcome to the podcast 3-year anniversary episode. I got a big show planned for you guys today. This episode is going to be packed. I'll be talking to your favorite guests, announcing new members of the We Don't Have Cookies family, and playing clips from other contributors and former guests of the show. I'm really excited about the new additions to the podcast. One of them will be the second guest on the show, and you don't want to miss that. I will be playing a message from the other one towards the end of the episode, and I'll have more to say about that later too. If you're listening to this on the day it comes out, this is the exact date the podcast launched back in 2005. Can't believe how far the podcast has come and all the great memories I've gotten from it. I'm looking forward to a lot more in the future. If this is your first time listening, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. The podcast is available literally anywhere podcasts are available. I was hoping to kick things off with Rhoda Young, but unfortunately she wasn't able to be on the podcast. The same thing goes for Father Time. Hopefully both of them will be on soon. They were very popular guests, so that's just something to look forward to. Another popular guest who hasn't been on the podcast in a long time is Kenny the Star Maker Bolin. He has been a part of the podcast since the first year and was one of the first people I talked to about being on the show. In the last year, we've done some of our best episodes together. Some people think that there might be some bad blood between us after I stepped down as the co-host of his podcast, but that couldn't be further from the truth, and to prove it, I will be talking to Kenny next. But first, I'm going to play a couple of quick messages from two of the guests from the first ever episode of the podcast, comedians Gary Henry and Mama Kate.
Hey folks, this is comedian Gary Henry. Just wanted to wish Jason and all the cast of We Don't Have Cookies podcast a very happy 3-year anniversary. Thanks for everything, guys.
Happy anniversary, We Don't Have Cookies. It's been a great 3 years, and thanks for having me along.
All right, I'm back, and joining me right now is a man who hasn't been on the podcast since I was the co-host of his podcast. I wanted to bring him on just to prove to listeners that everything's okay between us, and hopefully he'll be on a little more often now. It's the one and only Kenny the Star Maker Bolin. Kenny, how you doing? Kenny? All right, give me just a second, guys. I think I dropped the call. Let me call him back real quick.
Hello.
Hey, Kenny, sorry about that. I think I dropped the call. How you doing?
No, you didn't drop the call. I hung up on your ass. What do you want?
Oh, well,
obviously you're going to keep calling, so shit, I'm trying to watch CNN here. What is on your mind today, Jason?
Well, you were such a big part of the podcast. It's the 3-year anniversary. I just wanted to have you on, say a few nice words, and catch up. See what's going on.
I was going to be a part of what?
The 3-year anniversary of the podcast.
When the hell did I agree to that?
Well, I figured you were such a part of it for the last few years, you know, that...
yeah, I was. I was a big part of it. I think I was the highest rated person ever on your shows, if I remember correctly, yeah. But I haven't talked to you in several months. Have you not figured out exactly why that hadn't happened?
No, I keep trying to call, and
I've seen you on the caller ID.
Yeah, leave voicemails.
I've seen your messenger messages. Have you ever noticed that they stay unread forever and ever and ever? Have you ever noticed that they don't even get read?
Yeah, and I just assumed it was a glitch with my phone.
No, so here's the thing. Being as you've got me on the phone and being as you're thinking I'm going to be a guest on your show,
mm-hmm.
Do you remember another show that you used to do? One called The Bowling Alley? Remember that show?
Yes, sir.
Remember what you did to me on that show? Let me refresh your memory. Apparently you're not remembering too well. That was the show to where I got rid of several co-hosts, but I got rid of a co-host because I thought to give you your dream job, that's what you always told me, that you could be the co-host of the Bowling Alley. All you got to do, Jason, is get a goddamn camera, which I can't really remember how many times I've begged you to do that over the 5 or 6 years we've known each other. And then finally, when you realize, hey, goddamn, I can be the co-host of Kenny's show, yeah, I'll get a camera. So all of a sudden, you can rake up $59, $65, whatever it is, and you got yourself a camera, and I'll be goddamn if you ain't the co-host of the show. And then, when I thought we had really something good going, we got the YouTube channel going, and all of a sudden you announced you're leaving the show. And then it turns out, I thought that you were really struggling in life and that $59 was a big deal for you. And then I find out, I've done a little research on you, I found out you got thousands in the goddamn bank. I found out your mother left you with a shitload of money. I found out you've spent thousands, this is all at the courthouse. I found out you got thousands of dollars of improvements you've done to your goddamn home. I had a friend of mine that don't live too far from you that sent his drone over to your house. Oh yeah, I had a drone do a little flyby over your house. Turns out he says you've spent thousands and thousands of dollars on fucking rocks. For a fucking rock driveway. Thousands of dollars. He said it looked like mounds and mounds of rocks over there. And you had a team of people out there with shovels and hard hats spread rocks all over your goddamn house. And you're leading me to believe that you ain't even got $59 for a fucking camera. And then you got the nerve to call me and tell me, oh, King, I was going to put you on my 3-year anniversary show.
Well, it looks like the call dropped again. Kenny must be having some issues with his phone, but despite all of his joking around with me, I assure you that we are still the best of friends, and he would have said that himself if we didn't get cut off. He was probably about to say that he was just kidding and how we're closer than ever right before right before the call dropped. And Kenny does tend to curse a lot when he's joking, and that's another way you can tell we're still cool. Speaking of cool, my next guest is one of the newest contributors to the podcast. You're going to absolutely love him. But first, I'm going to play a message from another popular guest, the one and only Guff.
This is Goff from BeerNutsProductions.com, and everybody here at Beer Nuts Productions would like to wish We Don't Have Cookies podcast a happy 3-year anniversary. May you get through at least another month of shows before the internet shuts you down. But look, in all seriousness, everybody here at Beer Nuts Productions are so grateful for all the support you've given us over the years, Jason, and for letting us invade your listeners' ear holes. So, like I say, happy 3-year anniversary and congratulations on such a wonderful achievement. Chat soon.
A few weeks ago, I had Choo Choo Stew on as a guest, and we talked about a new podcast that we listen to called The Wood Enthusiasts. If you haven't checked out their podcast yet, please make sure that you do that soon. It quickly became one of my favorite podcasts in the world, and I'm happy to announce that they have agreed to become part of the We Don't Have Cookies family with their own segment. Joining me now to talk about that is one of the hosts of the Wood Enthusiast podcast, Larry Woodstone. How you doing?
Oh, I'm so good. Thank you so much for having us on the air. We're so excited about this.
It's great to have you on. And I've talked about your podcast on the show before, but I know I didn't do it justice. Would you mind telling the listeners about your podcast?
You know, as I think, it's almost impossible to do the wood community justice just in a single conversation. I mean, we're talking centuries and centuries and centuries of wood that has just kind of enveloped our whole entire community. And there's so many of us that are just really excited and we're really getting on board. So what Wood Enthusiasts is, essentially me and Gary Gilbert, the third, we met years and years ago. We met in 1986 after an incident. And ever since then, we started to begin kind of a community of our own. And what we found was, and this is pre-internet, mind you, this is pre-internet. So we were stomping up and down the hallways of the library and we were kind of, checking out the card catalogs. And I remember looking in some of the sleeves, there's a little sign out card. And I kept noticing every time we would take out a book that had to do with, trees or leaves or barks or, bark teas, things like that there would be a lot of people that have the same names, Mark and Teresa and Alex and Lisa and Beth. And I said to Gary, I said, you know what, Gary, there's something here. There's a group of people here that are kind of in the same passions that we have. And over the years, we kind of developed just some friendships with people. And there's people like Len Clutterbuck who kind of stayed in the distance by our own choosing, but he always wanted to get really close. And over the years, we kind of developed this community. And what happened was about 6 months ago, and I just kind of put my foot down and said, no, we're gonna take this national. We're gonna get right on the air, and we're gonna start a podcast, and we're gonna start a webisode, and everything really fell into place. So we officially kind of we call ourselves the co-founders or the founding fathers. Me and Gary and Glenn has kind of wormed his way in there, but we're really excited about the direction we're taking.
I hate to do this, but if you don't mind, my first guest on the podcast 209 episodes ago, his name was Gary. And just to make sure people don't get confused, if you could call your Gary GG3 or something like that, just to make sure the listeners know who we're talking about.
Oftentimes in private conversation, I like to call him Big G. And that's something that, I mean, we've done privately for years and years and years and years. I've always called him Big G because he's a stoutly fella. He's portly as I am, but also he's masculine and he's strong. So Big G has always fit really nice.
I like that name. Where did your love for wood come from?
This is a question. I was speaking at the Cherrywood Convention in Vegas a few years back, and one of the first questions we had was, could you land on where your love came from? And where I kind of first find myself is as I remember going to my grandmother's, and she was in Port Lambton. She lived on St. Clair River, right across from Marine City, Michigan, actually. And I would go into her house, and there was this huge, massive, beautiful oak table. And at the time, I always thought it was cherry. And I always used to say, oh, Dad, I just love this cherry table. And I would run my hands around the beveled edges, and I would just kind of feel the corners. And there's this beautiful thick gloss. But I found out later that it actually wasn't cherry. It was oak with a cherry stain. And I just remember laying underneath the table, and Thanksgiving preparation would come, and all the plates and the dinners and the dinner rolls and the smell would all kind of meld together, and I would be underneath this cherry stained table, this oak table. And I just remember at the time thinking, this is where it's at. Some man made this, and you could see the handmade planks of wood and how they were hand planed. And it was just a really beautiful piece. And I think ever since that day, I had a real connection to wood, probably more so than I ever have with any other product.
One of my favorite things that comes up on your podcast is Rub Fresh. Would you mind explaining what that is to the listeners?
Oh my goodness. This is by far one of Gary's, his strengths. It's something that he's kind of known for in the community, and it's something that he's been promoting for years and years and years and years. But what he likes to do, and if you ever meet Gary Gilbert, or Big G, if you ever meet him and you're on the street, you'll just ask him for a Rub Fresh, because what he always has in his pocket is a small piece of wood. Oftentimes it's pine, that's one of our favorites, but he'll have zebra, or he'll have birch, or he'll have a little slab of wood. And he just pulls out a little piece of sandpaper, usually something really with a fierce grit, maybe a 40 grit, and he gives it kind of a double pass, a quick brush, and gives it a good haul, a good sniff. And that kind of just relaxes him, it calms him down. But also, we'll be eating out at dinner, and we'll be sitting at a wood table, and he'll just kind of lean over. He'll take a quick rub with his 40 grit, and he'll give a good sniff. And he likes to kind of determine the wood, and he, he's got such skill. He can kind of guess the year. He can kind of guess when it was made and where it was made, and it's a real treat. It's a real treat to witness, and it's something I've been trying to pick up. But I don't have the skill that Gary does. But I mean, my goodness, it's a terrific experience.
Larry, I have so much more that I would love to talk to you about, but I have a lot of people that are coming on this episode. Is there anything that you'd like to promote before you go?
Yeah, there's so much. Me and Glenn Clutterbuck, he's the hydrationist with us, and Gary Gilbert, we've really been working on a few things, our web series. And right now it's not out. It's not out until September. We have 3 episodes we're going to release in September. We're really excited because there's some really fascinating things that are happening on that. But we also have a podcast. So if you YouTube us, you can look up Wood Enthusiasts. We have a channel right there. And we have a podcast that's also called Wood Enthusiasts. And it's actually on August 1st, we're releasing an episode that has extraordinary fallout. And then I'm nervous about it because there's some very controversial issues that are going to come up, and we're excited to hear it. But I mean, we're everywhere on social media. I'm quite pronounced when it comes to social media. So I've been on it for years and years and years and years. So we've got Facebook and Twitter, and we've got all those things. So if you can connect with us and just follow us, we would just love that. We truly would. We truly would just love it.
I have to ask. I was going to wind things down, but what kind of controversial issues will you guys be getting into?
Well, just to break it down in a short form, Gary made a statement that was quite abrupt and it was quite harsh. And he said, the facts are there's only 2 types of wood, hardwood or softwood.
Ooh.
And Glenn was just thrown away, and he said, "Oh, wait a minute. First off, we know there's 26,000 different species, but there's so many variations and types, and I think we need to be more open." And Gary said, "No, this is a binary. This is an A and B type situation, and you can see your way out of it." Is basically what he said. He said, "There's two things. There's hardwood and there's softwood." And that it kind of blew up, to be honest. I mean, I was kind of hanging in the middle, trying to hold the boys back and trying to calm down the room. But my goodness, we actually have been talking to the producers, and we're working on a webisode just to respond to the fallout, because it's enormous.
Yeah, it sounds pretty intense over there. So hopefully you guys are able to get through that.
We're excited to see where it's going to lead us, but it's not something we're going to steer away from, because these are hot topics. These are things that we want to press. We want to press forward, and we want to discuss these hard things in the wood community, because, I mean, hard things specifically for hardwood. But there are some issues that need to be discussed. I mean, there's some serious things out there.
I would like to invite you guys onto an episode of Martial Law sometime, and maybe we can get to the bottom of it.
I think that's important, is what I think. I think it's important that we kind of put this on the table and say, this is where we stand. And these are our points, and these are our facts, and let's have a look at it, and let's have the public make some decisions along with us.
Well, Larry, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. It's been great to talk to you. I love the podcast. Everybody out there, you need to subscribe to the podcast. You have to watch the YouTube videos, and you need to follow them on Twitter. It's one of the best Twitter accounts out there. And I'm going to take a quick break, and I'll be back.
Thank you so much.
This is Fran Kissling, Switzerland's unofficial ambassador to the world and the host of the Swiss Quiz. I wish Jason and the rest of the We Don't Have Cookies family a happy 3-year anniversary. Jason, thank you for your invaluable support in raising Swiss awareness and for helping to make everyone more Swiss.
Hi, I'm Mike Furman, and I just want to wish Jason and the rest of the We Don't Have Cookies family a happy 3-year anniversary.
I am back, and make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because Mike Furman will be on the next episode of the podcast, which will be next Wednesday. It's Cookie Palooza 2018 with the musical contributors to the show. But I have one musical contributor on this episode, and that's none other than John the Songman. How you doing, John?
Doing fantastic, and it's always great to be back, because Jason's always got the great shows on air, just so everyone is aware.
Thank you very much. It's great to have you here. I couldn't think of a better episode to bring you back for than the 3-year anniversary. Do you have an anniversary song you could sing?
I almost didn't think I had one, but I think it's going to go perfect for the anniversary one.
Awesome.
My name is Jason, and give me a new song that I want to hear, because it's a 3-year anniversary that I want to cheer, because it's something that I want to hear every year, because it's an anniversary show that makes me want to celebrate by drinking some beer, and when we give our listeners a big cheer.
I gotta admit, John, that had me dancing in my seat.
Fantastic. Glad to hear that.
John, you're always making songs for guests, so yep. I thought it would be fun for one of them to make you a song. This is by
you said a couple of them are comedians, right?
Yeah, and this is by a frequent guest and comedian, Mike Canistero. You ready?
Yep.
John, this song's about John. Don't know where he's from, but I'm sure he plays ping pong. Now Jason asked me, can you do a song about John? And I said it sounds fun, and he needs it by Monday. Now John's uploading, and he's uploading, downloading, uploading, downloading. Then he goes to the bathroom. He is John. He makes fun songs on the Wii. Don't Have Cookies podcast. Hey there, John, I hope you like your new song. And if you don't, well, at least it has music, so there's that.
I don't even know what I heard, but I just think I'll laugh because it would make me enjoy my bath while I do my math.
Well, John, it was great to talk to you. We got a bunch of guests on this episode. Is there one more thing you want to talk about before you go?
Well, no, it's always great to be back on air with Jason, who is nothing but a bud. And just because he's always got something live on air, because he's a great radio host, and it's what we always love the most, because it's always great for him to talk to all his folks.
Awesome. I'm going to take a quick break, and when I come back, I'll be talking to the man that got John the Songman into the podcast. That's UFC Hall of Famer and the bailiff of the podcast comedy court show, Martial Law. It's Dan the Beast Severn, and I'll play a clip by the most frequent person on the Martial Law episodes, Choo Choo Stew.
Hi Jason, this is Choo Choo Stew, wishing you, and We Don't Have Cookies, a very happy 3rd birthday. Thank you very much for the hard work and commitment you've shown over the last 3 years. It's been very entertaining, and it's been wonderful being part of your show. From Choo Choo Stew in London, wishing We Don't Have Cookies a happy, happy birthday.
Joining me now is the bailiff for the podcast comedic court episodes called Martial Law. It's the UFC Hall of Famer, Dan the Beast Severn. How you doing, Dan?
I'm doing fantastic, Jason. Who better to be laying down the law than the Beast?
That's right. The last time we heard from you was on the Christmas episode. How you been doing?
Well, it was a phenomenal Christmas, and yet another basket in it all, New Year's.
Dan is on the road right now, so we can't talk long, but he's going to be on the podcast in August or September, somewhere around in there. Is there anything you'd like to say to the listeners before you go?
Well, actually, I need to ask you something, though, Jason. Oh. How does it feel to be 3 years old?
It feels great, full of energy, full of life, ready to stop crawling and start running.
That's probably the best answer you could come up with right there.
Well, thank you very much.
Love it.
Well, I appreciate you being on the 3-year anniversary episode. It's great to have you. I was trying to get all the members of the We Don't Have Cookies family on today, and it means a lot to me you took some time out to do this.
Well, definitely love to be on. You always know that you're always going to get the best from the Beast.
That's right. All right, guys, I'm going to take a quick break. I'm going to let Dan get back to driving, and we'll be back.
Hi, this is Trevor Strong from the Oregon Worms, and you're listening to We Don't Have Cookies, 3rd-year anniversary, and stay tuned because I'll be on the next episode.
Hey, this is Sid Vicious, and I'm going to be the bailiff, and We Don't Have Cookies.
That's right. Wrestling legend Sid Vicious is now the second bailiff for the podcast comedic courtroom episodes called Martial Law, which will be making its return in the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. My next guest, if I called her the hardest working woman in comedy, that would be an insult because she does so much more than that. She's the hardest working woman in stand-up, podcasting, tarot card reading, and paranormal investigation. It's Karen Rontowski. How you doing?
Good. Thank you for that intro.
You are one of the busiest people I know.
Oh, my God. It never ends and it never stops being exciting. That's for sure.
And the most incredible thing is one thing to be very busy when you're located somewhere all the time, but you are always on the go traveling around. That's the other thing that makes it so much more amazing.
Yeah, it's tiring, but it's exciting. I'm in Phoenix right now. It's before noon. It's 110.
Wow!
And I've melted. I melted.
Well, speaking of exciting, Karen, I heard you got some good news recently.
I did. It's so funny how things happen. I did a clean comedy special for Dry Bar Comedy, I think 2 years ago, and it went viral. It just passed over 2 million hits, and wow. It's interesting how it's such a strange time because that, and I had some of my Paranormal Karen comedy videos start to go viral all in 1 week, all in the same week where I have so little money I have to cancel my health insurance. But if you could pay for your health insurance with YouTube hits, I would be in great great shape.
Maybe you can use that as collateral. Just go in and say, look at these views. I'll have your money soon enough. Does that buy me any time?
Exactly. I think not.
These $2 million show I'm good for it in a couple of weeks. Just give me time.
Yeah. And but no, that's been going great. Everything seems to be on the rise. I was on some real exciting podcasts, but summer's just, I have no idea why summer is hard for comedy, but it is. No clubs close, nothing changes, but there is no work in the summer. September things start back up again, but August and July just crazy.
Speaking of crazy, I talked about this on the podcast a few weeks ago. It's another really odd incident that happened at my house. If you're a regular listener, you've heard this story before, but I have to get Karen's opinion on it. I was in my kitchen, and I was upset about some issues I was having with the people who I hired to do the drilling for my new well. And I'm at the farthest side of the kitchen, looking towards the doorway into my laundry room. And I see a balloon floating through the laundry room, and it turns right and floats into the kitchen and lands between me and the doorway. All the doors and windows were shut because it was raining that day, and my youngest daughter was home, so I thought maybe she was messing with me or playing with the balloon for some reason. So I hollered for her, and she was upstairs doing something in my bedroom, and I asked her about the balloon, and she said she didn't have anything to do with it, and the last time she saw it was last night when she put it in her bedroom closet, which is right next to the stairway, because it wouldn't stop floating around her room, and it was getting on her nerves, so she just put it in the closet and shut the door. She might have forgotten and opened the closet door or something, and it floated out, but even then, it somehow floated out of her room, down the stairway, made a right turn into the laundry room, and then made a left turn into the kitchen.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But here's the thing, just real quick, to be fair, I wasn't exactly sure. Maybe she forgot because, she's young and you know how that is. So I grabbed the balloon and I put it into the front room, and the people finally showed up to drill the well. My daughter's in the kitchen with me, and I'm at the exact same spot I was before. The windows and doors are all still shut because it's still raining. I look into the laundry room from the kitchen, and here comes the balloon again. I don't know how to explain it the second time. If you're a skeptic like me, the first time, who knows what could have happened, but the second time is just beyond me.
Right. Well, you know what? And you have investigators coming, right?
Yeah.
It's very funny. This is like the third balloon story I've heard lately, a balloon would be so easy for something to manipulate. So that's a good, it's a good tool for that. And hopefully the investigators will check out the air currents in your house just to see if they run that way. Mm-hmm. But that's what you'd have to do. That's the first place they'll have to go, is to debunk and then see what's going on. But that's pretty interesting. That's a really cool thing. You know what you could do too is try it. Do you still have the balloon?
No.
Or a balloon, I should say. I would try it again with a balloon and try it with all the windows open or all the windows shut, or you know what I mean? Like change the air currents. But that's a pretty easy tool for people or for spirits to fool with.
Okay, because somebody asked me why I have so many balloons around my house. They were all centered around special events. We don't just buy balloons every weekend and just let them go.
Well, there you go.
But I do have a fourth balloon story for you that came from a listener. His name is Chris Doyle. He's in Australia. His grandfather passed away, and he had to leave Australia. He flew to Ireland, and he was spending the night at his dad's house. And when they woke up, I'm paraphrasing this, I might be forgetting some of it, but his cousin's birthday was the following day. And when he woke up, he saw something outside just kind of rustling around in a bush. And when he went outside, it was a balloon that said happy birthday. And they don't really have a lot of neighbors where they live. It's a pretty rural area.
Well, that sounds intentional. So that's pretty interesting. A lot of balloon stories. Wow. He could take that as a sign. Absolutely.
Okay, because he was wondering if my thoughts on it, and I thought it was, but I wanted to make sure I asked you because you're the expert on the subject. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And granted, we can, that's one of those where we can explain it away, or we can go with the sign. I don't really believe in coincidences.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, you're also a tarot master. You're so good at reading tarot cards. And I haven't brought this up on the show, and I'm not really going to now, but there was something that I needed some advice on. And I went to you and I asked what you thought. And you said, Jason, I see X. And I said, no, that's impossible. I need your opinion on Y, not X, because X ain't happening. You said, Jason, I'm telling you, it's what keeps coming up is X. And I said, okay, but can we go to Y? And lo and behold, X happened. And it was exactly what I never thought would have, but it did. So if you're out there listening, you should really take Karen up on doing a tarot reading for you. You could go to KarenRontowski.com, just go up to the top and you click on that tarot tab. And when you get out to the checkout, just enter coupon code WDHC10. You get 10% off. You can't beat it. And at the very least, you get to talk to Karen.
And remember, if you are having an algebra problem where you can't find X, I can help you with that too.
Well, Karen, I want to thank you for being on the 3-year anniversary episode and for being part of the We Don't Have Cookies family. Is there anything you want to promote before you go?
Just Paranormal Karen, folks. There's a podcast. There's a funny web series. There's it's my website. Just go to Paranormal Karen wherever you want. And I hope you enjoy whatever you find in your Paranormal Karens. And there's like I said, there's a web series, a podcast, and there's a Spanish lady that does something in Spanish. That she has one video called Paranormal Karen. Don't worry about that one. That's not me.
Well, thanks again for being on the show. I'm going to take a quick break and I'll be back.
Jason, this is Dave Nelson from the Comedy A Go-Go podcast, and I want to wish you a happy 3-year anniversary. And also, I want to share a secret that I've been keeping to myself. You are my spirit animal.
All right, guys, I got one more guest. He's a little surprised. I was hoping to just get a clip saying, hey, happy anniversary, but we're actually going to be talking on the phone. It's my good friend all the way in Auckland, New Zealand. It's the one and only Benny Mac. How you doing, man?
I am doing awesome, Jason Marshall. Oh, it's great to hear your voice on the other end of the line there. Congratulations on 3 successful years.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo!
It's been a long time. What have you been up to?
Oh, man, it's been a bit of chaos. I've been sort of hunkering down over the winter here, but I did spend a couple of weeks over in the States. Unfortunately, I didn't get to meet up with you, dude. It was a bit of a whirlwind trip.
Yeah, I saw you were in Las Vegas. It looked like you were having a lot of fun, though.
Yeah, it was a bit of an adventure, my friend, but I tell you, it's nice to be home safe and sound, you know?
I can only imagine. Are you coming back anytime soon?
Oh, I'm not too sure, my buddy. I've got to head over to Colombia for a couple of weeks, but I think I'm going to try and evacuate out of there safely too. So at this stage, I'm just going to come back down here to the Southern Hemisphere, down at the land before time, and just sort of, just hide down here just till everything blows over up there.
A couple of weeks in Colombia sounds pretty nice.
Yeah, it should be good. Doing some coverage for a adventure mountain biking competition. So I think that they're setting me up on a quad bike, so I'll be ripping around the countryside there and getting some killer content, hopefully.
Nice. Well, where can listeners find you if they want to keep up with what you're doing?
Periscope and Twitter are the places to be. There's been a couple of recent broadcasts that I've done in the last couple of weeks, so there's some fresh content at Benny Mac on Twitter and Periscope. Easy as.
All right, Benny. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I love your work, buddy. You have a great time, and thanks to all the fans for listening and all the other contributors on the show. All the best. Have a great 2018, and looking forward to 2019. It's going to be a freaking pearl of corker.
G'day guys, Beach here from Dog's Best Friend and Comic BS, and also Once Upon a Time, the Bullshit Podcast. And I just wanted to say, first off, a massive congratulations and a happy 3-year anniversary. Jason, you have done an amazing job to get this far and to do this much, buddy, so good work on you. That is freaking amazing. Now, have I got a fact for you guys? It is one of these things I grew up my life, and I've always said I am never going to be that guy who tells the joke, hey, when you've got kids, or hey, when you've got a dog, because everyone has kids and everyone has a dog. But you know what no one ever tells you? The bullshit fact that you cannot take a dump alone. Now, I'm taking a dump the other day, and I'm just sitting there minding my own business, having a good old time, and without a doubt, this is going to happen to at least 10 of you that are listening. 10, 100 people. This is going to happen to every single listener. This is going to happen to you if you have kids and a dog and possibly a cat, because if you haven't got a cat and you've got this other added bit in your house, you need to talk to someone. So you have to go past the cat tray to get to my bathroom. The other day, I'm taking a dump, and it's all good. It's really good, nice and comfortable. It's feeling good. Everything's nice and solid, as it should be downstairs. Next thing you know, footsteps. I hear, Daddy, Daddy, look what I have. And there's my beautiful son holding a giant cat turd. I can't get off. I'm still halfway through my log. So I'm just like, okay, just stay there, mate. I'll get to you in a second. This can't get much worse. In waltzes my giant dog with a cat turd in his mouth. And they both sit there and look at me with this dumbfounded look on their face of, hey, Dad, how come you don't have a cat turd? So all I'm saying is it is a fact of life that you will never, ever again shit alone when you have kids and dogs. Thanks, guys. That's all the bullshit facts I have for this week. Happy 3-year anniversary.
This is Mike Canistero wishing the We Don't Have Cookies podcast a happy 3-year anniversary. By the way, some trivia. The 3rd anniversary is leather. And I'm into leather.
One of my favorite parts of the podcast is taking a clip from an episode and putting it after the outro music. It's almost always something very odd and out of context. Here is a montage of all the outro clips from the past year.
I've noticed as you've met more people, I've come on less and less.
So you've sort of caught me off guard with that question.
I'll take that out then.
I'll be 60 in a couple of years, and I can count on one hand how many times I've shit my pants in public because I saved the other hand to wipe with.
Losing all your clothes, there's no hiding that.
Anytime you have to use a sharp utensil to drink milk, you're doing something wrong.
It's almost a shame he didn't die.
Have a nice day.
That recorded. Okay.
Touché.
I'm not in Pakistan. Facebook don't know where I am. Mark Zuckerberg sorted it out, man.
Choo Choo Stew, I want to make sure that you know that I am not biased in any way, even though I can't fathom what your defense could possibly be. It's the best chicken.
But it's medicinal, honestly.
Yeah, come on in. We want you to haunt us all the time.
You're fired. This guy is nuts.
I'm going to be a drain to my kids and my husband.
I was very happy with how the war on drugs turned out.
I don't do anything.
They might want to consider impeaching him from their insurance company plan. I think they got something to hide.
You know the story's not going to end well with step 1, put a bag over your head.
It's not for real. It's time to get fancy.
So what have you been up to?
Stuff, dumbassery.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to tell you about the 12 murders that happened in your bedroom.
I promise I will try. I can't promise I'll do it.
How dare Father Time? How dare he? Wow.
That is not a Swiss answer.
Are you on any medication?
So I'm an asshole.
Dorothy was a fucking slut. Fuck you if you don't like strong language.
Oh, golly me.
I want to see this bitch.
We'll just call it spring break for the podcast.
I can't tell if I went through a wormhole.
Why should have been lifting me? I seen duty on a damn sheet.
I love Plinko. I just prefer not to talk to people.
I don't know. That's why I have to hire a guy.
He's a piece of shit.
Bite me.
The popos.
We've had people like John Major that sort of look like a right dick.
Once you get married, it's over.
That'll work.
She interviewed my cat. A few weeks ago, I said that I was going to let listeners name my betta fish and posted a picture of it on Instagram. I said I was going to announce the winner on today's episode. One of my favorite listeners commented right away, and I ended up turning off the comments to the picture because it was such a good suggestion. I wasn't sure about it at first, but once I thought about it a little bit, I had to give it to him because he put so much thought into it, and it's clear he's into the podcast. So Domino is now my betta fish's name thanks to Lone Wolf GAM on Instagram and Twitter. He commented, I've been listening to your early episodes of WDHC, and if there's one thing that stands out from every episode, it's something that would definitely make a good name. I propose to you, drumroll, Domino. That was the comment. So that is now my fish's name. Once again, thanks a lot, Lone Wolf GAM. Thanks for listening to the show, and I have now named my fish Domino in honor of you. In addition to this being the 3-year anniversary episode, it's also the final episode of the Months of Jason. Just in case you don't know, the Months of Jason are July, August, September, October, and November. If you take the first letter from each of those months, it spells my name. I try to do fun things during those months. August will be great. I have a lot of summer-themed shows planned, and I'm going to kick things off with Cookie Palooza. Lollapalooza is this week, so the podcast will be having its own musical festival in podcast form. Mike Furman from the band Hard and Firm with Chris Hardwick will be on the show. Trevor Strong from the Arrogant Worms will also be here. And I'll be playing music from a few musical contributors to the podcast that I haven't played music from before, like New Zealand's Andrew London Trio and UK's Arseful of Chips. It's going to be a fun episode. That will be out either Wednesday, or I might be moving the podcast back to Mondays. I'm not sure yet. September 30th is International Podcast Day, so all of September will be International Podcast Month here on We Don't Have Cookies with guests from around the world. That month will also have the return of martial law. As you heard during the episode, the guys from the Wood Enthusiast podcast have a lot of things to hash out with each other, but they also have some issues with Choo Choo Stu, which came up over the weekend about his comments on the last episode he was on where we talked about their podcast, and Stu said that he's more of a plastics guy than a wood guy. So we may have our very first international episode of martial law with the plaintiffs from Canada and the defendant from England. My bailiff Dan the Beast Severn did forgive Stu for their issues on the Christmas episode, but if for some reason I don't feel like Dan could be impartial, I'll have to bring in the newest bailiff, Sid Vicious. No matter what, I'm sure it'll be a good time and justice will be served. Speaking of international, I'm so happy to have so many people from around the world contributing to the podcast. We Don't Have Cookies has to be the most international indie podcast in the world and has a really big international listenership too, which brings me to my last topic before I go. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. It means a lot to me, and I'm not just saying that. Every episode, I always start the show by thanking you for downloading the show because I want to make sure that's the first thing you hear because it means so much to me. If it wasn't for all of you listening, there wouldn't be a show. So thanks for your support, from listening to the podcast to the interactions to spreading the word about the show. And speaking of spreading the word, please help me spread the word about the show by sharing on social media and telling your friends. This is an indie podcast, and the only way it'll grow is by word of mouth. So if you could please share, retweet, or tell a friend, I'd really appreciate it. That's it for this episode. I'll be back next week with some of the podcast musical contributors on Cookie Palooza 2018.
Thanks for listening. Tell your friends about the show and leave a review. See you next time.
Years and years and years and years.